Hello everyone, I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This video is brought to you by Cross Age of Titans. It's a 4X strategy real-time simulation game which will be cross-platform, available on mobile, available on PC. So you're gonna be able to play it wherever you guys are, on whatever device you want, and of course, never skip a beat. Don't miss anything on your progression. The game itself is a bit different from the traditional strategy games because it brings in the anime style sort of graphics, and it has very well polished SD characters, a very strong connection in between character and story, so players really get to engage into a very deep storyline, and you're gonna get to build your own economy, expand your territory, your combat power by progressing through campaign, by defeating real players. The game itself has tons of PvE and PvP content, which we're gonna cover later in the video. So if you guys like what you see on the screen and you want to get involved, head over to the link in the description down below and join the early access to earn the battle advantage right now. I'm most probably gonna drop a few videos on the game, a couple of different guides, so definitely stay tuned for it. But let's dive into the game. And talking about the game, guys, how I mentioned, is a real-time strategy game, so taking decisions in real time is really important. It's gonna decide the fate of the battle, especially if you are going against a real player, and it's gonna be a lot of PvP involved in the endgame, but we're gonna cover it later in the video. I mentioned, you're gonna build your own economy, you're building your own town, right? And while you're progressing through the game, you're gaining tons of different resources, you're gonna unlock new heroes, and it's kind of like a hero collector game because you're gonna get to summon heroes, and each one of them is unique in their own way. They're bringing their own powerful skill set, and they work better with different types of troops, which we're gonna cover in just a second. And yeah, this will actually enable you to use tons of different strategies, and I feel like will be very important when you are playing with your alliance members, because you wanna have strategies in place, like, okay, I'm bringing these troops, I'm bringing this hero, I'm gonna be able to do this to support you from long range. And playing around with the terrain is going to be very important, because archers, for example, will be able to shoot over rivers, you have flying units, you have catapults, you have so many different things that are eventually going to become either special troops or just the regular classic troops that the game has. And you're going to be able to customize buildings, kind of like customize your entire layout, and you're going to have tons of different buildings in the game. You're gonna have the military buildings, the storages, you're gonna have the resource output buildings and research, and many different ones, which we're gonna probably cover in a different video. We're gonna deep dive into the topic of buildings and explain you all that process. And yes, you're gonna have a massive open world with tons of different points of interest, regardless if they're PvE or PvP. You're gonna have a lot of content to cover and tons of loot, right? So gathering, for example, resources from the outside world is going to be more beneficial for you than just producing them, because you're going to be able to gain more resources, you know, and you're going to be able to gain different items that will eventually empower you even more. And yes, you're going to want to create an alliance or join an alliance and kind of like fight for dominance in your server, get more territory, you know, capture different areas, and that will empower you more. The more you're going towards the middle of the map, the harder it gets, because you're gonna fight stronger players, you're gonna encounter stronger PvE enemies. Now, when we are talking about hero characters, troops, and titans, which are kind of like the special forces for the game, but we're gonna talk about that in just a second. Basically, you have different types of troops. So you have the regular troops, which can be upgraded. So you have the common archer, you have the common infantry, the cavalry, and then you have the special forces that can attack the opponents regardless of the type of terrain, right? So you have the flying units, and this will be something that's going to be upgraded. You're going to create the troops, basically. A range battle system can create strategies to use attacks and terrain without being disturbed by terrain. Like example, with a bomber, you can fly over mountains, over all sorts of spaces. The archers can shoot over rivers, and all this will allow you to create a pretty nice strategy. You're actually even going to be able to kind of like teleport into the middle of the fight, you know, and kind of like create confusion with the enemy, and quite a few different things will enable a dynamic fight and tons of new strategies, you know. Now, the Titans, for example, are the final special forces in Cross Age of Titan. You know, that's what the name says as well, and it's kind of like bringing in a massive powerful hero on the map, and either is owned by you, is either owned by the ally, and each one of them will have kind of like very different skills, and they will work better with specific troops. You know, they have different characteristics, and it's gonna be pretty fun to bring in a big guy on the map and just drop some awesome skills. You know, either if they're gonna be supportive, or either if they're gonna just smash a lot of damage. You know, talking about gameplay and kind of like discussing the single player, for example, we're kind of like gonna have to test our individual strategy and combat power, and kind of like gradually progress. And the more we progress, the harder the content, basically. So it's always kind of like keeping us on our toes to want to improve our teams, to create different strategies, to bring in new troops, to bring in new heroes, to bring in new titans, basically, you know. So it's going to be pretty fun. Kind of like, I like the idea of keeping you on your toes all the time. When we are talking about PvP battles, and this is going to be kind of like mained in the world, in the open world, right? So you're going to have Arena, you're gonna have Castle Wars, and Castle War is the main PvP endgame content in the game, together with the server versus server, and it has multiple phases, right? Like, of course, you're gonna use the terrain to your advantage, or who knows, maybe even disadvantage, and you're gonna have to break a massive gate in order to kind of like gain the territories, kind of like alliance versus alliance, multiple alliances, maybe fighting for it in there, and whoever wins it, right? So whoever wins it is gonna get tons of benefits for the entire alliance, and of course the leader of the alliance, which might be you or somebody else, will get to be kind of like the ruler of the entire kingdom. And it's always good to be in a top alliance when we are talking about these games, you know. Like, we're not 100% sure how impactful it's gonna be server versus server, so Castle War is gonna be one of the main things till we know that, you know. But it's gonna be pretty interesting all around. Definitely looking forward. How I mentioned, you're going to be able to upgrade your troops, so you have the classic troops, and they might have different strengths and weaknesses against each other, you know. So that again will enable different strategies that you might want to use when you are fighting in the open world, basically, even in the PvE. You know what? The early access is open now. Jump in, try out the game. The link is in the description down below. That was all for this video, guys. Thanks again to Grand Cross Age of Titans for sponsoring today's video, and I'll catch you all soon in the next one. Peace.